So, have you ever stopped to wonder what really makes an action good? I mean, is it all about the final outcome or is it something deeper? Today, we're diving into the powerful and pretty demanding world of Kantian ethics. It's a framework designed to give us a clear guide for doing the right thing every single time. So let's dive in and see how this whole moral system is built from the ground up.
Right. So, at the very heart of Immanuel Kant's philosophy is this fundamental question about where morality truly comes from. And for him, it's not about what you accomplish, it's all about why you decided to act in the first place.
Okay, so let's just start right there. I mean, think about it. If you help someone, but you're only doing it to get a reward or to look good in front of other people, was that a truly good act? Kant really forces us to look past the shiny results and put our own motivations under a microscope. And this classic example just brings the whole idea to life. The shopkeeper's action is exactly the same in both scenarios, right? The kid gets the correct change. But for Kant, the entire moral question hinges on his reason for doing it. Was it just good for business? Maybe he was scared of getting a bad review online. Or was it a choice driven purely by principle? This brings us to Kant's foundational answer to all of this. He argued that there's only one thing in the entire universe that is good without any qualification, without any exception. And that one thing is what he calls a good will. Think of it this way. Things like intelligence, courage, even wealth, all of these can absolutely be used for evil purposes. But a will that is determined to do the right thing just because it's the right thing, Kant says that is good in and of itself, no matter what happens next. Kant's own analogy for this is just brilliant. He says a good intention doesn't need to be successful to be valuable. Even if you try your absolute best to help someone and you fail completely, the goodness of your will, your pure intention, remains. It shines on its own, totally separate from the outcome. Okay, so if having a good will is the ultimate goal, how do we actually achieve it? Well, Kant says it's by winning this constant internal battle, the fight between what our reason tells us is right and what our feelings and desires are tempting us to do. And here is the core conflict. On one side, you've got duty. This is your rational understanding of moral law, the things you know you should do. On the other side, you've got inclination. This covers basically all your feelings, from sympathy and love to selfishness and fear. For Kant, an action only has true moral worth when it's driven by duty and duty alone. So Kant breaks it down into these three core motivations. You might do the right thing to protect your reputation, like our shopkeeper. That's just self-interest. Or you might do it because helping people just makes you feel happy. That's inclination. Now, these aren't bad, but Kant says they lack real moral weight. The only motivation that is genuinely moral is the third one, acting purely out of respect for the moral law itself. Okay, but how do we know what our duty actually is in any given situation? This is where Kant gives us his most famous tool, the categorical imperative. I know, it sounds super complex, but just think of it as a simple, logical test for any action you're thinking about taking. This master rule has two key parts. The first one tests for logical consistency, and the second one checks for respect. Here's the kicker. An action has to pass both tests to be considered moral. So let's see how this works with a real practical example. Imagine you're in a really tough spot, and you're thinking about making a promise you know you can't keep, just to get yourself out of trouble. Is this morally okay? Let's run it through the test. So first, we have to state the underlying rule, or what Kant calls the maxim of our action. In this case, it's basically the idea that making a false promise is an acceptable strategy whenever it suits us. Now for the big move. We universalize it. What would happen in a world where everyone operated on this principle? A world where anyone could make a promise without any intention of ever keeping it. And the result is a total logical collapse. See, the rule completely contradicts itself. In a world where false promises are the norm, the whole institution of promise-keeping becomes meaningless. The word promise would have no power. So the maxim self-destructs when you universalize it, which for Kant proves it's an immoral action, a clear violation of duty. But remember, that's only half the test. The second part asks us to look at our actions from a totally different angle. It's not just about logic, it's about dignity. So when you make a false promise, you are using the other person. You're deceiving them to achieve your goal, completely ignoring their own goals and their right to make an informed choice. You're treating them like a tool, a mere means to your own end. And this violates their inherent worth as a human being.
so it fails the second test too.
All right, so Kant gives us this incredibly clear, rational system. But how does it actually hold up in the messy reality of human life? Well, like any big philosophy, it has some really powerful strengths, but also some pretty significant weaknesses. And here we can really see the central tension of Kantian ethics in practice. On one hand, it's great. Its rules are universal and fair, it promotes an incredible respect for human rights, and it rightly focuses on our intentions. But on the other hand, man, it can be incredibly rigid. Like, what if you have to lie to save someone's life? A strict Kantian would say lying is always wrong, period. The system really struggles with these kinds of conflicting duties, and it pretty much dismisses the moral relevance of emotions like compassion.
So after digging into the goodwill, duty, and this categorical imperative, what's the big takeaway for our own lives? I mean, how can this 18th century philosophy actually guide us today? For me, it all comes back to this one powerful idea from the humanity test. Honestly, this single sentence is the heart of Kant's entire moral project. It's this profound reminder that every single person has an intrinsic worth and dignity that must be respected, no exceptions.
At the end of the day, Kant isn't offering us an easy path. Not at all. He's challenging us to elevate our thinking. He's asking us to act with integrity, to be consistent, and to ground our choices in reason and respect, rather than in our fleeting desires or some calculation of what we might get out of it. So I'll just leave you with this question. The next time you face a moral choice, big or small, ask yourself, am I doing this because it's convenient or because it feels good? Or am I doing it because my reason tells me it is my duty? It is a tough standard to live by, for sure, but it's one that really pushes us toward a more principled way of being.